everybody. Welcome back to Event About It, the Dynamic Dialogue After Show. I'm your host, Megan Martin, and I am here with Jessie Smith. And before we get into it, tell the people, remind them a little bit about who you are and what you do.
I have been in events for about 20 years now. Currently working at Enterprise Events Group as an event manager.
So coming from small town Montana, at what point you went to San Francisco? So you started in small town, which Kalispell's not really all that small anymore. Oh, so where did we start?
In the Bay Area.
Started in the Bay Area.
Yeah.
Okay. So flip-flop that. Starting in the big city, came to small town where your family is. So was there a moment working in either location where you were like, I'm an event person. Like, this is for me. This is what I want to do.
In the show, we were talking about how I got my start and being put in the sales office at the restaurant that I was working at as a host. I think that's really where I figured out that this is where I want to be and this is what I want to do. And this is something that I could make my career. I joke that I've been in this industry for so long that I don't really know how to do anything else. So I don't know what I would do if I wasn't in events.
Agreed. I've done it so long and I've loved every minute, all the terrible parts of it, just as much as the good parts. I mean, there are some work perks to our industry for sure, but I really don't know what I would do else at this point. Like everyone's like, oh, I would have taken this left turn. Like there really is no left turn. I can't imagine something else at this point. One of the unique things that I love about your background is you actually have formal education in events. So many of us fell into it, yourself included, but then you actually went to school. You have an undergraduate and a master's degree in event management. So one, talk us through why and how, because there's only so many programs in the world to begin with. And would you do it again? Like most people don't have formal training.
I started at San Francisco State. I think I always thought I would be a business major, but around the same time that I started at San Francisco State, I came in from community college. I had transferred in. And at that point, I really had to decide what I wanted to do. And I had been working in the restaurant and in the sales office and everything. So I chose hospitality as my major. And I did have thoughts that maybe I'm pigeonholing myself. Maybe this isn't what I'm supposed to do. Just continued.
Before we go to your master's, so with your undergrad program, did you take event management courses or was it more generalized? Because what I find a lot of hospitalities, it's on like hotel management, restaurant management, not so much conferences or marketing or event planning.
When I was at San Francisco State, I think there was maybe one or two courses. It wasn't really a main focus within the program. It was more an all encompassing hospitality program. And at that point, because my experience had been in restaurants, any of the specialty courses, I kind of leaned into that restaurant management.
Well, I guess you came from there, like you were in the sales office, so that makes sense. So then you graduate. Did you take a gap year or did you go straight into your master's program?
I took lots of gap years.
Most people don't really pursue higher education, like a master's degree. A lot of people have undergraduate, but there's not a lot of master's degrees in our industry. What inspired you to want to do that?
Having a master's was a personal goal for me. And then at that point in my life, I'd been doing events at that point for at least 10 years, maybe longer. So it just made sense to choose that over maybe an MBA or something else.
So for anyone thinking like, oh, maybe I should look at San Diego State or another master's program, there's only a handful out there, and specifically in event management, like what was that mind shift step back? Like, oh my gosh, I'm going to be a student again.
I mean, the nice thing was the people in my cohort were very similar to my age group or a little bit older. We didn't really have any fresh out of undergrad students in our cohort. So you're in a group of people that are in that same mindset thinking, how do I become a student again? and going through all the learnings of getting back in the groove of things or even learning new things because it had been so long since they had gone to school.
I have found that I've mentored in that program for a couple of years now and have found it's pretty much all working professionals that
Yes.
typically take that core class degree program, which I think makes it a little easier because I think the instructors also understand
Yeah.
that there's day jobs. One of the few people I know that actually came with formal training in this events world. Would you go back and do it all over?
I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You would encourage someone to go through the program, get more like formal education because so many of us just have like street cred and street smarts in the industry.
We meet people at conferences, but then there's just these few outliers that maybe you wouldn't meet if you didn't go through this program. And so, just for the people and the networking within the master's program at San Diego State, I'd go through it again.
I think especially in the events world, how deep your Rolodex is and the network that you have, it makes it so much easier to troubleshoot and problem solve like on the fly when you like, oh, I know so and so, I
Yeah.
can call them. They've probably seen this or heard this. And the only way you get that is really by joining committees or getting involved and going through those programs. Shifting gears just a little, we've talked about formal education. So that's like through universities. You and I both have our CMP. I have mixed reviews on the CMP these days. I don't know that it's keeping up with industry standards. I volunteer now with the EIC to kind of help update some of that to make sure it's keeping up with trends and what people need to know. You have your CMP as well. Would you get, are you going to keep recertifying? What do you think about that program? And do you think every planner should have their CMP?
I don't necessarily think every planner should have their CMP. Not every organization values a CMP, and it's a huge commitment. It's the cost of the education that goes into it, it's the cost of the test. It's not necessarily right for everyone to have. I did just recertify mine. I mean, I plan on continuing to. It wasn't an easy test.
No, it's
And
quite complicated.
so I think that's what pushes me to recertify as well.
So that you
And
don't have
keep
to
it.
retake it? I
Yes,
mean,
I
that's
never
the
want
only
to take
reason
it
I'm recertifying because I don't ever want to take that test again.
I never want to take it again. I think it's a valuable tool to have, but not necessarily meant for everyone.
I would agree, and I think the other piece to it also depends on where you are in your career. At the time I took it, I had a mentor who was very seasoned in the industry. I asked him why he didn't have his, and he was like, "Well, I went, but at the time it was in-person testing, and they only offered it 4 times, and he couldn't go at the time that it was offered." He was like, "Now at this point, like, so far in my career, like, it doesn't make sense for me." But he encouraged me, and it was kinda like you with the master's program, like, it was just something I wanted to do, like, personally was important to me. But I agree, I don't know that it's for everyone, but now there's my god, there's so the alphabet soup of certifications. So I think beyond the CMP, I think if you're getting specialized in a certain part of our industry, like a trade show, CAE, if you're in the association world, the CAE, I mean, there's that alphabet soup, and we can like acronym all these things out for you guys, but there's so many. So, what advice would you give to someone thinking about taking the CMP? Like, how do you qualify yourself if it's worth it for me? And then we'll get into like, how do you even study and prepare for something like that?
I think that's the question that someone needs to ask themselves. Is it worth it to them? Are they doing it because, for the distinction? Or are they doing it because their organization puts value on it and, maybe it will help them out financially or help them get assigned programs that they're looking to get assigned because of that distinction.
Bigger projects,
Yeah.
bigger raises because you have that.
But just looking at what's best for the individual and what what they really want.
So let's say someone says yes, they're going to take the CMP test. How did you prepare to get ready for it?
I bought all the books and read all the books and did all the sample tests. I went old school and made little 3x5 cards, quiz myself, and then I leaned into the PMCA has the practice tests, so I took a lot of those, and then I would print them out, so I was familiar with some of the questions.
Yeah.
And but then when I took the test, I I went through all the questions, answered them, and then went back and went through all of them as well, just to make sure that I wasn't too far in my head.
I did something similar. The only difference, I joined a study group, so there was 12 or 13 of us that met every week for, I think it was like 3 or 4 months, and we took a chapter a week of the readings, made flashcards. I think we had a dozen practice tests that we had purchased and shared, and like you, I took them on paper, and then I would go back because the tricky thing for those that haven't taken the CMP yet is you have to read the context clues. It's almost like taking a Jeopardy test, if you will. Like there's context clues and like three answers might be right, or kind of like the SAT, where there's like multiple right answers, but which one is like the most right, which is the tricky part of the CMP. So you said it once, just say it one more time so everyone knows. Would you take the test again, or you're just going to recertify so you never have to do it?
Recertify so I never have to do it again.
Agreed. I don't want to do that. Shifting gears. So we've talked a little bit about the education. Now, working in events, you've worked in some of the largest enterprise programs out there, even smaller programs working on property. So starting out kind of as a catering company, working there in restaurants, and then working for a lodge, a hotel, do you think being a CSM, a convention services manager, working on property before going into big enterprise groups like you work on now, did that benefit you? Like I value my CSM days. That's where I came from as well, starting out. Do you think that helped you as a planner?
I think it definitely does. I think it gives you more empathy towards the venues. I think sometimes planners go in and they have a different expectation than what is actually possible within the staffing and, a venue. And the other thing is it on the opposite side of that though, it also allows you to know where you can push on um on a CSM, or things that you can ask for that won't be shut down, and uh, things that your client might be asking for and will get approved.
Yeah, most planners have never had to actually sit down and go through floor plans with a fire marshal and like fight the fight of like why this maxed out room set should actually get approved.
Yeah.
I mean, there's really nothing scarier than sitting across the table from a fire marshal and explaining to him why we should break all of his rules. It's pretty intense. And I agree with you on when no means no. And like the room, my always big thing was always room flips. Like no hotel ever wants to do a lunch flip or anything like that. But sometimes they are necessary. And I think coming from the CSM world, I'm like, no, this is actually doable. Like you need to call in all hands and it's going to suck for an hour, but like we can do it. So I agree. Is there a lesson from your CSM days that you take into your planning world now?
I'd say customization of menus and, knowing what was capable, or what chefs prefer or won't shut down for dietary restrictions, and special meals, or ways to diversify a menu that isn't the same deli buffet every day.
Do you find that chefs like to do the custom menus?
I don't think so. I don't know. Every once in a while, I feel like you find one that's like, yeah, this is great. But I think sometimes, at least with banquet food, they're on repeat.
Well, yeah, I mean, there's so much going on. I mean, we find ourselves in the event world when you have back to back events. You want the rinse and repeat. You don't want to have to think about it. But I mean, there are some chefs out there, and I encourage like
Yes.
ask your chef because
Yes, there are some out there.
that do want to like customize it and think about it.
I've worked with some good ones that are like, oh yeah, that sounds great.
So thinking back, wearing both hats, your CSM and your planner hat, where do budgets get blown up first? Like labor, AV, what are some of the like big budget busting stuff that planners probably don't think about?
Specialty meals. are one where I could see uh, budgets being blown up or even beverages on consumption.
The on consumption will get you in a hurry.
Yeah, labor is another one. Room flips, like you mentioned, labor charges in that sense, or even bringing in temp staff that you may need last minute, or maybe you were planning on them, and then you end up with all these extra needs for a temp staff.
I would agree with all of that, and especially thinking about labor, like a union versus non-union city. I mean, some of those union rules, like I one time had to pay a union supervisor because we brought in our own AV we didn't use in-house, and there was no negotiating around it because it was union rule that if we didn't use their people, then we had to hire one of their supervisors who for 8 hours for 2.5 days of load in just sat in a chair. I don't even know if that guy actually showed up on day 2 and 3, but either way, we had to pay someone for like 3 days, 8 hours to supervise because it was union rules. Like, talk about budget buster. Ugh, crazy. So, in that same vein, what do you think is one of the most overlooked line items that could save a show?
I'm going to go back to food and beverage because it is a huge line item.
Yeah.
And knowing where you need to customize or what specialty items you need to include, and then what things that it's not going to add any value to guest experience. So can you remove it and save a little money?
Yeah, I've learned some tricks over the years of food and beverage that I learned from my mentor Ron, where like having smaller plates, like people are less likely to overcrowd a small plate, or not putting out the big coffee cups, maybe having the smaller one, or the same with like the water bottles. Like if you have smaller bottles, they're not going to fill them all the way to the top, and you'll be able to stretch a water budget. Like small, like crazy psychological stuff like that, like little napkins instead of big napkins, stuff like that. I think kind of helps. Like, is there something that like a meeting planner trick that you use to stretch a food and beverage budget?
So looking at the menu in its entirety and seeing if there's any flex, if you don't need three desserts, let's go with two, or do you need all the salads or all the fluff that goes into a menu? Is that just going to be wasted, or is it something that we can eliminate and save a little bit of money?
Yeah, the other dessert's a good point. Two instead of three. I also will put those as afternoon break. Like, you don't need dessert after lunch when you're home. Like, do you need dessert at lunch at a conference? So can that dessert become afternoon break? And then you're saving budget there because you're not bringing in, another set of food. Now, certainly if you have the budget, everyone loves, multiple desserts all the time, but one way to kind of stretch it. If you could tell today's, like a new planner today, one thing about working with a venue team, what would it be? Like a piece of advice.
Be kind, but be direct so that they know exactly what you're looking for, what you want, but also give them some grace in that you may be the they may have not done any program like what you're asking. So um, give them grace in that sense for them to figure you out as a client and also figure out what you're looking for in their venue.
Oh, that's great advice. And in that same vein, thinking about small town versus big city. So working in San Francisco and working in small town Montana, is there something that you've learned from each experience that you take with you? Is there something that you miss maybe from either experience?
I'll say working in Montana definitely brought out the creativity. We only
That was like the most PC, polite way to say what you're actually about to say.
I, you know, there's not a ton of staffing, so figuring out how to accomplish what the client's looking for, and also make sure you're not burning out the staff you have is huge. And it's on the creativity side, it's that creating new menus that the venue's fine with, that the client's fine with, that meets everyone's needs. Activities is one where we only recently got a DMC in this state, so that was something I definitely learned was I acted as a DMC at a resort because I knew the small amount of transportation companies we have and which activities um, were preferred to, different groups and would provide transportation and meet the needs of what the client was looking for. So all of that
Yeah, I mean,
fun creativeness.
for sure. I mean, I even just the few years I've been here, I've definitely seen, our town and the events I come through, like getting elevated, more experiences is definitely getting better. But I can imagine you had to be pretty scrappy in the first couple of years you moved here. Growing up in the city my whole life and then coming to Montana. Do you feel like pace has changed for you, like priorities and how you approach events? Because where we live, it's so much more chill than in the city. Everybody is like, where is it? When can I get it? When's the next thing? And that's just not the way things operate here. And has that impacted working at these huge enterprise conferences?
It it hasn't, and I think that's due to my experience of working in California prior to coming here. It did help when I started working in Montana, or when I was working in Montana, because I had that mentality that I need to get back to people quickly and they want an answer as soon as possible. And people would reach out to me and think that I was on kind of Montana time and I would respond right away and they'd be, you know, pleasantly shocked that I didn't have the more laid back.
You weren't skiing all morning and then getting back to people in the afternoon?
I will say living here does make you appreciate wanting to be outdoors, and if something can wait until the next day, let it wait until the next day. Don't stress yourself out as much.
That's a lesson I think everyone in this industry, like, no disrespect when I say this to anyone, we're not curing cancer here. We're not going into brain surgery. Like, is it really going to be the end of the world if it's tomorrow morning and not today, right? Like, I think sometimes clients get a little worked up and it's like, it's going to be fine. Like, the
Best way to
answer
think
will
in this
be
industry,
there.
yes, we are not saving lives.
Yes. We're creating environments for people who do that, but God, no one's dying at our conferences. No. Thank God. What's one thing clients romanticize about events that's completely false?
I think that clients are more concerned about their attendees waiting in lines than the attendee is waiting in lines. Again, I just came off of an event, and the biggest thing with this client is they hate lines. And I get it. No one wants to wait in a line. And it's really when you talk to the attendees, they don't care.
Standing in line is the easiest way to network because it's easy to just be like, oh God, this line, right? And then start talking to your neighbor. Like one of my very, very good friends in the industry, I met while we were standing in line waiting to get chair massages. Like we both blew off a session and we're like, I was like, I'm going to go get a massage. I'm going to take 30 minutes to myself. And we have become such good friends. That was like a decade ago, standing in line, and now she's like a great friend. So I think trust me, I get it. Like you don't want the optics of lines, but like there's ways to enhance the line experience. Like nobody gets mad waiting in line at Chick-fil-A.
No, no, they do not.
Do you have a post-show ritual? So coming off a show, is there something you do every time to decompress?
I usually try to squeeze in an acupuncture appointment. That's kind of my ritual, and then there's always the celebration drinks.
Oh, of course. Always. Do you have a pre-show ritual, like things you do to get ready to go on show site?
There's always snack shopping because I have this fear that I'm going to starve, even though there's food everywhere.
Yeah, but there's no time to like a lot of times you don't have time to like sit and eat a meal. It's like 10 minutes, that's all you get to eat.
Yes.
What kind of snacks do you bring on site with you?
I mean, protein bars. Um, there are these things called I think it's like a fruit jerky. It's pretty good.
Yeah, I get those from Costco.
Yeah.
Yeah, those are good.
Yeah.
Fruit
Trail mix.
strips, trail
Yeah.
mix always good. I have both of those in my bag as well. All right, finish this sentence. The event industry would be so much better if.
It is a great industry without it being better.
So for you, the event industry would be better if we gave each other more grace.
Yes, everyone is going through something that you don't know about, or might be going through something.
Yeah, and events are stressful,
Yes.
and not everyone is capable of handling it in the best way. I've certainly had some of my worst days as a human on show site producing events, and I mean, I think we all hope we're not judged and held totally accountable for our worst moments. So I would agree. I think if the events industry would be nicer to each other. Events are hard, days are long.
Everybody's stressed.
That is all the time we have for today. Thank you for joining the after show. Thanks for spilling the tea and sharing it and surviving it. And until next time, we'll see ya. Happy eventing about it. Cheers.